Hello, I'm Sam from Jessup Says. The focus of my channel is to share and educate on how to buy less, buy better. It's not necessarily about buying less things, it's about buying something that fits its purpose perfectly and serves you for as long as possible. Today, once again, we're going to continue to explore those fantastic trousers, the chino, with yet another high quality example. This time I wanted to get into a brand that you may have heard of, or you may not, but a brand that absolutely is worth knowing about due to their very interesting style and production. As is usually the case with things that are buy less, buy better, it's a brand that has been heavily inspired by those good old days when things were made to last. And of course, heavily inspired by the military of the time. But before I say who it is, I wanted to make a little comment about a weird thing that I've noticed in starting this channel. And that is how I assume a word is said in my head versus how it's actually said. A phenomenon that I've only noticed since having to write something down and then sound it out, or at least try and be somewhat accurate with what it's meant to sound like. Kind of a weird little phenomenon. Hopefully I'm saying this somewhat accurately because today we are discussing the Jadida by the enigmatic Moroccan trouser gods Casatlantic. Casatlantic have 4 trouser designs with a variety of different cloths for each design. So if the Jadida isn't exactly what you're after, I'd recommend looking at what other options they have because there are plenty, and I'm going to outline a few and the differences between them in a moment. The Jadida, or the explorer's cut, was named after Jadida, the port city of the same name. The city is located on the Atlantic coast of Morocco, about 100 kilometers southwest of Casablanca. It was originally centered by the Portuguese in the 15th century and was originally known by the name Mazagan. It was an important trading center for the Portuguese Empire. As such, they built a number of fortresses and other structures, many of which have been preserved and are popular tourist attractions today. These trousers are inspired by the seamen and explorers in the 1960s, what they call naval vogue, those people wandering around this ancient Portuguese city. The little quote from the website is, "The Jadida is our take on a narrow fit Chelsea with a high-rise zip fly and a 20.5 centimeter or 8-inch leg opening. Jadida is cut from a typical 1960s pattern using a 12.3 ounce cotton twill fabric, designed and tailored in Casablanca, Morocco." The details of my pair are as follows. The style is called the Jadida. The color is khaki, but they also come in black, beige, white, navy, sage, and antique white. They are made in Casablanca, Morocco. The material is once again that 10.3 ounce cotton twill. Not really any idea what else other than that. The construction features a zip fly, flat front, belt loops, and again a 20.5 centimeter or 8-inch leg opening. As for the fit, I ordered a 34 waist with a 30 leg, which is quite cool that they offer different lengths. Personally, I'm quite thankful that I can wear them without alterations, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. The Jadida, as I said earlier, is the explorer's cut, so it's a narrow fit chino with a high rise and zip fly with a straight tapered leg. The other options are the Tanger, which is the officer's cut, which is the widest cut. It features double pleats and a high rise. The Mogador, which is the tailor's cut, which is a high rise single pleats and their front facing pleats and side adjusters. And then there's the Safi, which is a high rise double forward facing pleats, extended waistband, and side adjusters. This one also has a slimmer leg. I actually have a pair of Safi, so I will do a review of those soon. The cost is 240 Australian dollars or around 160 USD, so very, very good value. Casatlantic was started by Nathaniel Asaraf, a name who I'm meant to be familiar with, but I'm not. Anywho, it turns out after a quick Google that he worked for companies like Ralph Lauren in Paris and was involved in his family business, the Swedish company called Broadway & Sons. Broadway & Sons are responsible for finding and selling some of the coolest vintage and military surplus clothing in the world. It seems to me a pretty obvious jump from working amongst cool vintage classic military surplus clothing to starting Casatlantic. And according to his story, after a little bit of inspiration from Nathaniel's grandfather, Ali, that was all she wrote. Born in Casablanca, Morocco in the 1930s, Ali was inspired by the military uniforms and clothing that he saw on the streets in the city during the 1940s when it was under a French protectorate. He was particularly drawn to the style of actors like Clark Gable, Humphrey Bogart, Errol Flynn, and he wanted to have clothing that was like theirs. Ali's mother offered a laundry service to military personnel, and she would sometimes make repairs as well. And Ali saw this as a perfect opportunity to borrow a few garments for himself and his friends. After the end of World War II and with the withdrawal of military forces in Casablanca, Ali and his friends would wear these clothes and wander around the streets just like GIs and legionnaires in khaki uniforms and boiler suits. Ali enjoyed the fit and cut of military clothing, so he began to visit his local tailor to make more of it. He had trousers and jackets and slowly started building up a wardrobe inspired by the people who came through Casablanca from across the Atlantic. This love for military-inspired fashion and a desire to bring it to the world is what inspired the creation of Casatlantic. So let's get into how this pair actually fit. As I said, these are a 34 waist with a 30 length. Now it might be that some people in North Africa are much slimmer than those here in Australia. In fact, that's probably quite likely. These feel to me more like they fit like a 33 rather than a 34. They're not exactly tight on my waist, but they're also not exactly fitted like a 32 tends to be. And they don't have tons of space like a 34 typically does. So it's just sort of somewhere in between those 2 points. It's not fitted, but it's not tight. It's also a high rise, so similar to enigmatic, which sits around the belly button, so it's quite easy to compare those 2 trousers. And I've actually owned and worn both a 32 and a 34 in the enigmatic pair, so it does provide a pretty good reference point. Again, these are more like a 33, in between that 32 and that 34. Looking at the fit more closely from the front, typically with a line pressed into it because I tend to like that style, these sit very cleanly on my legs and create a very nice clean silhouette. I'd probably like to get these taken up a bit like my enigmatic pair are, because over time I've realized that that's actually just my preferred length. At the moment, the silhouette just isn't as clean as the T140s from enigmatic. But honestly, it's very, very good, and the shortening will help them to drape better, so I better get onto that. The rise is perfect, and overall I think from the front it's a really good looking trouser. I'd say that it looks like a straight cut from this angle, though they do say it's slightly tapered. It's going to taper down slightly from the knee down, but it's not that noticeable to me. From the side, it looks pretty much the same as the front. The taper below the knee is incredibly slight, but I suppose you could see that it's there. You can see here that there's these little darts on each bum cheek, which is done to try and cinch that area down and make it more sleek. This is probably the one area of the design that doesn't look as good as it could. I've seen Casatlantic pants on myself and on other people, and it's the same in pretty much all situations. The bum can look a little baggy, even if you do have large glutes. It's not a bad thing, but it's not as clean cut as my enigmatic pair, which give you that nice sort of tight bum look. Overall, the fit is really good, but I think to help them be one step closer to that perfect, I need to wash them to ensure there's no shrinkage, and then get them taken up to the length that I now know that I like, to make them more versatile and useful to my daily life. Moving on to the fabric, which is a 10.3 ounce cotton twill fabric, which has a very thick horizontal pattern in it. I love the look of it, and it's quite a lot darker than my T140s. It's a bit more vintage military in its feeling. It feels sort of rugged and textured. Sort of reminds me of a pair of 90s Dickies, if you remember what those were like, or sort of what I remember 90s Dickies were like in my brain. So maybe a bit of nostalgia there. In general, the cotton twill fabric is considered to be a medium weight fabric, and I think that's very suitable in my experience for 3 or 4 seasons. It's quite an interesting and quite a useful fabric that I like quite a lot. The construction of the Jadida chinos feature a fly zip, which means that the front of the trousers has a zipper closure rather than buttons or snaps. They also have a flat front, which means that the front of the trousers is smooth and does not have any pleats. The trousers obviously feature belt loops to hold a belt in place, and the waistband seems to be a separate piece, very much like the enigmatic T140s, though it isn't mentioned explicitly on their website. The trousers have a leg opening of 20.5 centimeters, or again 8 inches, which is the distance across the bottom and the opening of the trouser's leg. This measurement can affect the fit and the silhouette of the trousers with a larger leg opening, resulting in a wider and more relaxed fit. An element that I've just thought here while actually recording this video is that because I have short legs, if they're cutting 20.5 centimeters at the very bottom, as in at the 34 length, which would be the full length of the trouser, when you're cutting 4 inches off, and probably more when I get them shortened even further, I'm not sure what that new leg opening is. But yeah, just an interesting thought. So the shorter you are, probably the higher that leg opening is, and then probably would de-exaggerate the taper of the overall trouser, which may be why I'm not noticing a big taper in the trouser. Design also features a single rear pocket, which is fine by me, but the pocket bags do have a cool little detail inside them, which I think is a really nice personal touch. One thing that is missing compared to the informale pair is that outer seam stitch, which I really like, and to me it adds something that I really value in the overall design. So how do I wear them? Well, very similarly to every other pair of chinos. They can be worn with pretty much everything, but let's give you some examples. For colors that work with khaki, there are many options to choose from. Neutral colors such as white and black and gray are always classic choices and will pair well with khaki chinos. You should also try and pair your chinos with bolder colors such as red, blue or green for a more vibrant look. Ultimately, the best colors to wear with khaki will depend on your personal style and the occasion that you're dressing for. But they go with everything, so just try it out. So for the most relaxed and laid back look, you can wear your chinos with a lightweight sweater or a cardigan with boots or trainers, maybe a rugby. It's comfortable, stylish, and pretty good for maybe a little bit cooler or medium weight weather. For a casual, more everyday look, you can pair them with a simple t-shirt or a button-up shirt, again with sneakers or loafers. If you want to dress it up even more, you can wear your chinos with a crisp white shirt, a blazer, and dress shoes. It's a classic, sophisticated outfit that works for pretty much all business or formal occasions. So there's a lot of versatility there. Overall, these are my second favorite pair of chinos. That's mostly my fault because I need these to be hemmed at a length that I prefer to wear these days. There is clearly something special to the informale T140s, and I think that's the details and the fabric, that Japanese cotton, and that to me make it worth the extra $150. But being unbiased, I would say that dollar for dollar, you really can't get a better pair of chinos, to my knowledge, than these Casatlantic ones. But I'm gonna continue looking. If there's a pair that you think can take the crown for the best value chino from Casatlantic, let me know in the comments. I'm always keen to hear what everyone else thinks and where they think the best value is in this segment. But for now, Casatlantic retain the crown for the best value chino that I have found. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Links are in the description as always, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Cheers.